but there's no transportation.
You're taking it away from the kids.
Is this the signal that you think you should be sending as superintendent to accept a benefit like this?
I think the important thing for the public...
I know there were parents who were concerned about basic services.
Yes.
It was a horrendously wrong choice by this board.
Good evening. Over the past few months, we investigated your public schools.
We examined thousands of documents and spoke to superintendents from 60 different districts. Jasmine and I took a hard look at where your tax dollars are going.
Tonight, we will show you what administrators are earning in some of the largest area districts, how some districts choose to spend your tax dollars on cross-country trips with little apparent benefit for students, and most importantly, the trickle-down effect of how a bad district truly affects the entire community.
And while we expose what some critics call wasteful spending, that they say brings nothing of value back to the classroom, we'll also show what it takes to rebuild a troubled district and how your involvement is key.
Of course, when you take a look at a school district, you see a face, and that face is the superintendent. When we return, a look at how your district superintendent is compensated. The numbers may surprise you. At a time when every dollar counts in public education, why are so many local superintendents making so much money?
The salaries and perks are sparking outrage in some communities.
My heart is with these kids.
You could feel the anger.
People are upset.
Directed at Ferguson Florissant Superintendent Jeff Spiegel.
I think it's ridiculous.
And the board that gave Spiegel and his wife free lifetime health care just for him agreeing to one more year on the job.
It was a horrendously wrong choice by this board.
According to the district, the board cut the deal with Spiegel just before it cut $15.5 million from the district budget.
You're taking it away from the kids.
Is this the signal that you think you should be sending as superintendent to accept a benefit like this?
I think the important thing for the public to understand is that right now, it has not cost the district one dime.
But that's only because Spiegel hasn't retired. You're pushing aside the fact that the school board president just said it could very well cost the district over $200,000.
It could, but that depends on whether I'm employed someplace else or not.
But board president Les Lentz insists the deal will save the district money because Spiegel's replacement would probably make even more than the roughly $240,000 a year he receives in salary and benefits.
But it's a cheap investment in the overall investment of our district.
But how can it be a cheap investment if even he admits the board doesn't know how much it could cost taxpayers?
It's obscene. It's astronomical.
Audrey Spalding is a researcher at the Show Me Institute, a fiscally conservative think tank. She personally reviewed the contracts of about 450 Missouri school district superintendents for a study published 4 months ago.
In my review of superintendent contracts, no superintendent was ever awarded a lifetime benefit that he or she didn't have to at least pay for or continue working for the school district. I've never seen a superintendent awarded free health coverage for as long as he wants to use it.
But Spiegel isn't the only local superintendent getting extraordinary perks. When Hazelwood's new superintendent signed his contract, paying him $235,000 a year in salary plus benefits, one of those benefits was getting 180 sick days up front, even though current district policy only allows administrators to get 13 days of sick time at the beginning of their tenure. I can't find any other contract that gives this many sick days at the beginning of a superintendent's tenure.
Okay.
So clearly every other school district in the metro area believes it was able to entice a qualified superintendent without giving them this many sick days.
But you know, Craig, you have to remember we're the second largest school district in the county. Okay, we're the second largest district, and there is a lot of accountability that is placed upon him, and we have high expectations of him, and we want to retain him at any cost.
Superintendent Steve Price will have a lot of help if he uses those sick days. Hazelwood has 9 assistant superintendents, the most in the metro area.
We're trying to get the best return we can for the dollar, serving almost 19,000 students in this district. So do I think the number of assistants here is appropriate? Yes, absolutely.
Our investigation found 10 local superintendents make salaries in excess of $200,000 a year, some receiving tens of thousands of dollars a year in retirement contributions. And many of them have other stunning benefits too. The Clayton superintendent gets a car allowance of $750 a month. But the biggest salary and quite possibly the largest overall compensation package doesn't go to Price or Spiegel. Kirkwood Superintendent Dr. Tom Williams, hired just a year ago, makes a salary of $242,000 plus $42,000 a year in benefits, a total of $284,000, even though Kirkwood has just 5,000 students. Why is Superintendent Williams making so much money in a district like this?
Dr. Williams is an investment in our kids.
There are 6 St. Louis area districts that are more than triple the size of Kirkwood, and 3 districts, Clayton, Ladue, and the much larger Parkway district, all have higher composite ACT scores than Kirkwood. Can you explain why your superintendent deserves more money than those superintendents?
Craig, I can't respond to the other districts and what the superintendents make and what their board has provided those superintendents, but I can tell you this. This community, the Kirkwood School District community, is a very proud community. They have high expectations for this district.
Is part of this about being able to say that Kirkwood has the highest paid superintendent?
No.
Bragging rights?
No.
Superintendent Spiegel and the Ferguson Florissant Board aren't bragging either.
It says for him and his wife.
But they are defending the lifetime health care benefit to the end.
They made me an offer, and I accepted it.
Jeff Spiegel will be 56 when he retires next year.
But it is not just the big districts who are paying out big bucks to administrators.
What about the smaller districts where every penny counts, even more so for them? Why are some of the smallest districts in the metro area paying so much money to their top administrators?
We just looked at big school districts like Hazelwood and Ferguson Florissant. Supporters in those districts say the superintendent earns every cent for overseeing so many students.
But what about some of the smallest districts in the metro area? Districts where total enrollment is only a few thousand, or in the case of one district, a mere 800 students. Oh, hey, how are you, Superintendent? I'm in a parking lot across the street from the Brentwood Superintendent's office. We were hoping we could talk with you about your contract. We are here. Sure, on camera. And Superintendent Dr. Charles Penberthy is there because he refuses to discuss his lucrative contract. I don't need to take a lot of your time. That contract pays him $216,000 a year in salary plus benefits for running a district with just 800 students, one of the smallest in the metro area. $216,000 a year.
Oh, that does seem out of line.
Charles Bryant lives in Brentwood and graduated from the high school.
And I don't know of anything outstanding that he's done that would warrant that kind of an exceptional pay.
Brentwood High, which has won national recognition, has very good test scores in recent years, but they are far from the best in the area. You don't want to go on camera? But Dr. Penberthy didn't want to talk about that either. Certainly wouldn't take any more time if you talked with us on camera than if you talk with me on the phone. Brentwood Board President Keith Rabenberg, the managing partner of a downtown St. Louis law firm, also refused to be interviewed on camera. During a telephone conversation, Rabenberg insisted that the superintendent's salary is a good deal for Brentwood based on Penberthy's experience, skills, and the lack of support staff for his position.
This is Progress South Elementary.
Many superintendents with far more responsibility than Penberthy actually make much less than the Brentwood superintendent.
We'll see how quick we can get them off the lot.
Fort Zumwalt Superintendent Dr. Bernie Dubray has been in the district for 28 years. Fort Zumwalt has 24 schools. Brentwood has 4. Fort Zumwalt has an enrollment of nearly 19,000, which is 23 times larger than Brentwood's. Yet Penberthy receives a salary that's $42,000 a year higher than Dubray's.
I think people feel that I've been fair with them, and that's one of the ways you show that, especially in difficult financial times.
Is keeping your salary down to what you
Keeping
believe
it
is defensible.
Yes. I think there's a paternalistic quality to that. You look out for other people before you look out for yourself.
In Edwardsville, Superintendent Dr. Ed Hightower runs a district with 14 schools and an enrollment of 7,500. He receives a $164,000 salary, $52,000 less than Brentwood's superintendent.
I don't get concerned about what other superintendents are making. Every community has to be comfortable with its superintendent.
Not far from Edwardsville, the board for O'Fallon Township High School District fiercely defends the contract it gave Superintendent Dr. Darcy Benway. It's a district with only one high school, but Benway still earns $210,000 in salary and benefits.
That's what we negotiated. I don't know what to tell you. We think we've got a bargain. She does a great job.
O'Fallon Township High now has 2 campuses and is widely recognized as the best high school in the Metro East, certainly one of the best in the metro area. But no matter how good it is, should she really have what may be the most lucrative contract in the Metro East?
Is that out of whack?
Yeah, it's extremely out of whack.
Our objective is to have the best people run our schools. And that's what we try to hire. That's who we have.
The finding in our study showed that one of the best determinants for superintendent compensation is district enrollment. So you would expect a smaller school district to pay its superintendent less.
I don't know how you can fault us for not giving you a chance to comment.
At least O'Fallon gave us an interview.
Thank you, sir.
Brentwood just didn't feel the need.
And consider this, the Ladue district, which is widely considered one of the best in Missouri, is nearly 5 times larger than Brentwood, has 2 more schools, and much higher test scores than Brentwood. Ladue's superintendent earns $32,000 a year less in salary than Brentwood's superintendent.
To see the compensation for nearly 60 superintendents, go to the interactive map on our website, KMOV.com.
So far tonight, we focused quite a bit on superintendents, but what does it take to make a good district leader? We hear from an expert on education next.
And what about school boards? These are your elected officials. Are they being held accountable? Wait until you see what we uncovered.
A successful school district can't function without strong leadership.
We spoke with one of the leading experts on what you should expect from your district leaders. You're the director of a program at Maryville that prepares educators for leadership roles, and you were an educator yourself, a principal for more than 2 decades. You know, when we talk about leadership, how important is leadership to the success of a school district?
I wouldn't say that it's everything, but without it, you have nothing. Leadership is like being the CEO of an organization. The success of a school, the success of a business, the success of a political entity is going to be tied into solid leadership, good leadership, forward-thinking leadership, and then someone who's strong enough to hold the organization to its mission.
Taxpayers don't just depend on the superintendent. They also rely on school board members to make good decisions. Mm-hmm. Would you agree?
I would agree. Ultimately, the superintendent, while an employee of the district, is the employee of the Board of Education. It's the Board of Education that sets the parameters, that sets the salaries, that decides what their community wants in a CEO, what results they expect to gain from that particular package. There's boards that are elected in Brentwood and in Maplewood and in Jennings and in Riverview and in Parkway and in St. Charles County that are independent to a degree in terms of how they make those decisions. So you can't really compare them. You can't generalize and say all boards are or no boards are, because they're all independent.
Does it say something to you when you hear that a local school board is spending money on travel within town, or that they're misusing taxpayer dollars?
It always bothers me when I hear somebody is misusing taxpayer dollars, because the important thing with dollars is that it goes to the education of kids.
What signal does it send to families and taxpayers when the money is being misspent?
Well, if the money is being misspent, the signal is somebody should be watchdogging the money. What decisions go into why a conference is attended or travel is made, Those things all impact ultimately in some way or another on those students.
A recent presentation before the St. Louis Public School Board showed that both teachers and parents see weak leadership as an obstacle to success. Now, as we mentioned, this obstacle does not only lie with the administrators. We recently looked into board members as well.
Our investigation uncovers some school districts spending a lot of money on travel for school board members. One board has been on a cross-country spending spree that is startling when compared to other local districts. Its road trips include a stay in Las Vegas.
Director Johnson.
The Jennings School Board oversees one of the most troubled districts in the metro area. Miranda Jones is the Jennings Board Vice President.
I don't want to be up here and not know what I'm talking about.
That need to know is why board members say they'll do whatever and travel wherever to learn what it takes to turn things around, partly because the problems in Jennings can seem so overwhelming to them.
Here I am as a person that's in charge of trying to lead the educational future of over 3,000 kids. It is so scary to me because my daughter is in this district.
School district records obtained by News 4 show Jennings board members spent $71,000 on training and travel for professional development during the last 2 fiscal years, easily enough to hire an experienced teacher for a year. The expenses include $28,458 to the National School Boards Association for memberships and conferences, among them a trip for 4 board members to last year's national convention in Chicago.
There are other school boards that have stopped going to conferences because of the economy, because they're making cuts, because they think it sends the wrong signal to their employees and to the community.
It's the wrong signal to understand what is going on in the educational system when things are changing daily, monthly, and yearly.
But the out-of-state overnight trips aren't the ones that surprised us the most. 9 months ago, the board held a retreat at a St. Louis DoubleTree hotel. 5 board members and an administrator each got a room and spent the night. How close is that hotel to Jennings? We drove from the school board office to the DoubleTree.
It took us 26 minutes to drive from the Jennings School District offices to the DoubleTree Hotel.
According to a reimbursement form signed a month later by the superintendent, the total cost of those 6 rooms was $680.
We were there till 1 o'clock in the morning. I wouldn't want to have to drive home at 1 o'clock. We had to be back up at 7. You think it's best that we just recklessly, leave? This was a retreat.
I don't use the word recklessly. You really think driving 20 minutes home would have been
it's not
being
20
reckless?
Minutes. It's not 20 minutes from my house, but maybe 20 from.
It's a 20-minute drive from this office to the hotel.
Well, we had a retreat, and all of us didn't stay, but the majority of the board did stay.
John Schlereth is one of the board members who spent the night.
Can you explain why you spent the night at a St. Louis hotel when you lived just 20 minutes away?
It was a board retreat, and they felt like it was.
They? How about you?
The board felt like it'd be better to be somewhere else. That's where the accommodations were at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why
Thank
didn't you have your accommodations at your house?
Thank you.
Thank you.
But that wasn't the last time a Jennings board member spent the night at a local hotel. 4 months ago, new board member David Green got his state-mandated training at the DoubleTree in Chesterfield, about a 30-minute drive from Jennings. He spent the night, too.
You don't think that's a waste of taxpayers' money to have local school board members spending the night at a local hotel?
There was one school board member who stayed there for a mandatory meeting. He didn't have any transportation to get back, so I didn't think that was abuse.
In all, we examined more than $120,000 in direct board expenses during a 2-year period, which is more than 10 times the amount spent by nearly every other board we examined. The Jennings board did pick up undisclosed costs for administrators, but it also spent $6,000 on flowers, $2,800 on photos of themselves, and $15,000 on vague references like board expenses or replenishing petty cash. The board insists it's spending money responsibly because it could have spent much more. Las Vegas is a neon-wrapped gambler's paradise. A Sin City that proved irresistible to the Cahokia School Board.
They said we was required to take seminars, and that's why I went.
Larry Wynn and 5 other board members flew to Vegas 15 months ago.
But you're not required to go to Las Vegas because you're a school board member.
It's required to have seminars. That's what I went for, that particular seminar.
Joining Wynn in Vegas were board members Willie Baxton, Yvette McFadden, Peggy Shelton, Mary Ann Spicer, and Linda Stoltz. The only board member who didn't go was Rich Sauget. According to the sponsor, the event wasn't intended for board members. Instead, it was designed by practitioners for practitioners, which meant teachers, administrators, and district staff, so they could strengthen their high school redesign efforts. The 4-day-long trip cost taxpayers $10,612.
You could have gone to a seminar almost anywhere.
I went to Las Vegas.
The Vegas conference was just the beginning. 5 months later, 6 board members spent several days in Chicago attending the Illinois School Board Convention. That cost taxpayers $8,862. Mary Ann Spicer is the board president.
At a time when Illinois still owes you almost $2.5 million for last year's budget, there are people that might look at this and consider this unnecessary spending.
I don't think so. I mean, I have gained a lot of knowledge from attending these classes.
2 months after the state convention in Chicago, board member Linda Stoltz went to a conference in Phoenix at a cost of $2,565. And 2 months after that, in April of this year, all 7 board members went to the National School Board Convention in Chicago for 3 days, costing taxpayers another $14,310. In all, those 4 trips to Vegas, Chicago, Phoenix, and back to Chicago cost taxpayers nearly $36,000.
I have parents that come up to me and ask me, well, why are you doing this or why are you doing this? And I was able to give them a knowledgeable answer that satisfied them. Had I not gone to any of these conferences or meetings, I would have looked like...
Should school boards be traveling that much?
In my view, no.
Dr. Garrett Duncan is an associate professor of education at Washington University. One of his main areas of research is morals in education.
I'll just say this. You have a number of entities where there's a school board or a city council, a department within a university, where the leaders see their budgets as their own personal endowments, and they will do with it what they want.
Our investigation found that when it comes to expensive long-distance road trips, the Cahokia School Board is in a class of its own. For example, the Edwardsville Board spent less during the last 7 years than Cahokia did in 1.
We don't choose to use any national conferences where you have travel outside the state of Illinois.
Why?
Simply because of cost and doing the benefit.
During just a 10-month period in 2009-2010, Cahokia spent almost $36,000. During the last fiscal year, the Edwardsville district spent $4,100. Parkway, one of the biggest and wealthiest in Missouri, spent $3,600. And Clayton, one of the richest and most successful districts in the Midwest, spent just $894.
And that's their prerogative.
In other words, Cahokia spent more tax money in Las Vegas than Edwardsville, Parkway, and Clayton spent the entire year.
You could have gone to a seminar almost anywhere.
I went to Las Vegas.
Cahokia School Board member Larry Wynn told us that Illinois school board members are required to get training and go to seminars, but they're not.
When we first requested records from the Cahokia district, they failed to tell us about that trip to Las Vegas, apparently hoping that what happened in Vegas stayed in Vegas. But a source told us about the trip, and a few days later, we got our records.
If you think the Cahokia Board's trips are outrageous, our investigation also reveals one district spent more than $300 a night for a hotel room in Memphis.
And another district helped pay for an administrator's trip to Australia. That's right, Australia. Who are they, and how do the districts defend that? That and more when Your Public Schools returns.
The economy has been brutal, and we all have felt it.
But some districts continue to send their administrators on expensive long-distance trips for what is called professional development. But do they really need to travel that far? And what are they bringing back to the classroom? Superintendent Saunders, we'd like to ask you some questions about those records that we've requested. Dr. Teresa Saunders is the only local superintendent who refused to give us any school records. Your contract, professional development, training, and travel? Our fight for the truth in the troubled East St. Louis School District will take us on an unexpected trip to a confidential source who has some of the records the district refuses to give us. These documents are the ones that we requested through the Freedom of Information Act, but sometimes the East St. Louis School District doesn't believe in the Freedom of Information Act. But first, our investigation focuses on districts that did cooperate.
So help me God. Congratulations, Mr. President.
When President Obama was sworn into office, the Roosevelt High School Marine Junior ROTC cadets marched at the inaugural parade. Roosevelt Principal Terry Houston was there too, staying 3 nights in a $304 a night hotel room in Washington. That trip cost the district almost $2,000.
Once in a lifetime opportunity. Could we have looked at getting some supporters to pay for the bill? I would think the answer would be yes.
Would you handle it differently if you did it again?
Yes.
After that trip, Principal Houston flew to New York, joining 16 other district employees for a conference sponsored by the American Federation of Teachers. The superintendent defended the Federation of Teachers conference and a reading conference in Minneapolis that was attended by 15 employees. Combined, those 2 conferences cost taxpayers $27,738.
And so some came from schools that had as many as 100 employees. And so that's a really, really small number for the number of employees who needed to come back and transfer that knowledge to 74 different schools.
Our investigation also uncovered a $956 hotel bill for a 3-day conference in Memphis. We also learned that during the last 2.5 years, one St. Louis City School District employee attended 18 conferences or workshops. Another went to 17.
I think we need better processes in place.
So our request prompted you to take a closer look at it.
Most definitely.
Now let's go back to the definition.
The small but wealthy Ladue District has a strong commitment to professional development. Since June of last year, Ladue has sent employees to 23 states, including 18 people who went to the Assessment Training Institute in Portland, Oregon, at a cost of nearly $25,000.
In the last 3 years, our middle school has made tremendous strides in student achievement. And I think a lot of it is because of the training that they received at this assessment conference.
13 months ago, the Ladue District spent $1,740 to help the Director of Parent Education attend a coaching conference in Adelaide, Australia, where she was one of 24 presenters.
That's not a normal trip that we would have, but I would say periodically if we would have an administrator or an educator that's asked to present, first of all, that's a compliment to show that we do have a strong skill set with our employees and to also to share that. But the district would not pay for the full trip. We paid for lodging to help the employee out.
The Clayton District, which has 1,000 fewer students than Ladue, spent almost as much on out-of-state professional development. 6 months ago, Clayton sent 10 employees to San Diego for a cost of $12,603. Last March, 7 employees went to a National Science Teachers Conference at a cost of $9,385. The Clayton District insists many educators need to leave the area for top professional development opportunities because there simply aren't enough of them in the St. Louis area.
The problem with staying in regional conferences, we don't see the top experts in the field. We don't network with a tremendous amount of high-performing districts.
You better figure it out.
But you don't need out-of-state conferences to become a great teacher. 2 Metro East teachers, Anise Brave of Alton High and Jennifer Jardin at Trimpe Middle School in Bethalto, are among the 8 finalists for Illinois Teacher of the Year, and neither one of them has traveled out of state for professional development. You've been a teacher for 8 years, and you've never traveled farther than Edwardsville for professional development.
No.
You feel like you're missing anything?
No. Our professional development, we try to make it worthwhile, useful, and cost efficient. I think that's the key word here at Alton High School.
After we first broadcast that part of the story, Anise Brave was chosen Illinois Teacher of the Year. Does it send a bad signal, do you think, during these economic times, if you
send somebody to Australia, if you send somebody to Seattle or Washington or New Orleans or New York?
I think you have to be reasonable. Of course, depending on the situation, you don't want to send a bad message.
Superintendent Saunders. So what message is the East St. Louis school superintendent sending? After we filed repeated requests under the Freedom of Information Act, we finally met that confidential source who gave us school board minutes that show the board approved repeated trips to California, Washington, D.C., and many other long-distance destinations. The board also approved $105,000 in training for paraprofessionals, but didn't disclose how, when, or where the money would be spent. Why won't you give us public documents? Ladue, St. Louis City, and many other local districts have cut back on their travel, especially long-distance travel, and some districts now refuse to leave the metro area.
However, when decisions like travel and training are made, it ultimately is the responsibility of the superintendent.
But what other obstacles do they face? We sit down for a very candid conversation with the superintendent of one of the area's largest districts. Find out why he feels he can save his struggling schools. It's a fact. The St. Louis Public School District is one of the worst performing districts in the state of Missouri. It lost its accreditation 3 years ago and remains under state control.
One of the key obstacles to growth has been leadership. The district is on its 7th superintendent in 5 years. We spoke with the current superintendent, Kelvin Adams, about parents' concerns and his efforts to turn around the struggling district.
Children that are 18 and 19, just graduating out of high school, they cannot read.
Hundreds of parents spent a Saturday morning at a town hall meeting at Vashon High School, many of them wanting answers from Kelvin Adams.
When is Gateway going to be air conditioned?
I can't tell you anytime soon.
We just laid off 3 teachers this week.
I know there were parents who were concerned about basic services.
Yes.
Books, air conditioning in the school, having enough teachers.
You got 20 or 30 kids up in there with 1 teacher. That's like a slaughterhouse.
Yes, we have cut some teachers and the class sizes are a little bit larger than they normally have been.
Adams has been dealing with these kinds of issues ever since he was named superintendent of St. Louis Public Schools 2 years ago. His short-term goal is to get the district on the path to accreditation.
Yes, you did.
And he seems to be headed in that direction. The district now meets 5 of the 14 standards toward regaining accreditation. That's up from 3 last year. The graduation rate stands at 60%. That's up 15% from the previous year. But St. Louis Public Schools is far from where it needs to be, and Adams concedes mistakes happened under his watch.
But I do think we can do a much better job in terms of the dollars that we receive and how we utilize those dollars.
How would it need to improve?
Well, I think we have to look at every expenditure to determine if it's an appropriate expenditure. And I don't know that we do that on a regular basis with as much detail as we need to do.
And Adams says the district should communicate more with parents.
We have to own up to the fact that we have not always been providing them the information that they need to have, telling them that the bus is going to pick up their child at a certain time. Those are things that we have to do a better job at.
Like other urban school districts, St. Louis Public Schools has its share of problems that come from the community surrounding it. John Yurkovich is the director of the Cooperating School Districts, which includes nearly 30 metropolitan school districts.
What it is more than anything is a matter of degree. High unemployment, family situations, high mobility of people within the district, and all of that creates, you know, a degree of instability within the district itself, and it creates some challenges they just have to address.
He says the district alone cannot shoulder the burden of producing responsible citizens, and parents at the town hall seem to agree.
What do you think is lacking from the parents?
Discipline. I think discipline is lacking from the parents. You have to be firm. You have to put your foot down. You know, you have to show your kids that this is tolerated, this is not going to be tolerated.
Well, this is really not about Kelvin Adams, the superintendent. This is about the 25,000 kids that we service every single day, and I think that's what people need to be concentrated on.
A state-appointed panel says the struggling St. Louis Public School District should continue with its appointed board until the district regains its accreditation. Now, next month, the state will announce whether it will sign off on that recommendation.
So we've seen what kind of impact a lack of direction can have on the actual school district.
But what about the impact the school district has on the community? A good district has a direct impact on the community, but so does a bad one. We'll explore that story next.
You've heard it before. St. Louis has one of the worst performing school districts in the state, and students aren't the only ones losing out.
Good school districts not only produce quality students, they build communities. If a school district is in trouble, the effects can be devastating, to the points where families just want out.
A high school football team can be a great source of pride.
Sumner versus Roosevelt, and Sumner's going to win.
Glenda Thornton, a 1978 Sumner High graduate, never misses a game. But as much as she tries to give back, she also wants out of a school district that she believes failed her son. What does he do now?
Works at a warehouse. Can't get in college. So that says a lot.
The quality of education determines the fate of its community. In this case, the city of St. Louis.
Whether it's trying to, create safe neighborhoods, bring jobs and businesses into the city of St. Louis, is really related a lot to the quality of education that they have.
The St. Louis Public School District has a history of failure. Stripped of its accreditation, overseen by a special administrative board due to low test scores, poor financial oversight, and declining enrollment. Despite some improvements, enrollment is still down. Families looking for more quality education are turning to charter or private schools. Others are moving out of the city.
It's a hit and miss a lot for parents. And if they can't find another choice, they leave.
That trend also plays out across the river in a city featuring one of the most historically challenged districts in the nation.
Now what are we looking at?
Test scores and enrollment continue to sink at East St. Louis School District 189, which remains under state academic watch.
Kids loved it.
Otis Woodard thought his children could defy the odds. His family lives in a nice neighborhood. And he and his wife play active roles in their church and their children's education. Even the district recommended that News 4 speak with him.
We're known down in all the schools, so they know our faces when we walk in.
But the district was not aware the Woodards recently had a change of heart.
We didn't have any books to work out of, and it was just drama the first week of school.
What do you mean no books?
We didn't have it. Well, we still don't have books. They say we were getting books, but I don't know.
Things like that just automatically turn you off as a parent. It's like, enough is enough. This is how many years I've been in the area, 8 years, and this is not the first time that this happened.
Enough is enough. Those are his words.
As I said, parents have choices. And if he's in District 189, which he is, he has some choices. I can't tell you that every school is excellent. We wish that they were, but the high school is not.
And that's why the Woodards are thinking about moving to Belleville for the promise of a stable environment and quality education. Back on home field in St. Louis, you'll find advocates for St. Louis public schools, pointing to positive signs of growth.
With the new school board and the new superintendent that we're working with very close, I think that we have an opportunity to right those wrongs and to get this school and get this system back on the right track.
We got a long way to go.
So often parents say they have their hands tied and there's nothing they can do about it.
But there is. When we return, a local education expert tells us things you can do to make your school district a better one. Tonight we've shown you a lot of fallacies in the public school system, but these problems can't all be blamed on the districts themselves.
If you live in that district, it's your responsibility to hold them accountable. But is this easier said than done?
Parents are the key part of the solution. If you have a district where parents are involved, they know the finances, they know what crime is about, they know the district administration is what direction they're moving. When parents are organized in a district, things happen because politically, parents run it, and the administrators and the teachers, the people we've hired, run around in it.
How can a parent make a difference in the way a school district is run?
Number one, what we worked on in the early 1990s is I worked with the White House to get legislation passed that gives parents the right, number one, to be involved in their school. Number two, each school has to have a parent involvement policy. In that policy, it is stated how you as a parent, on paper, with the district, have a contract, and we call it a parental involvement pledge. How are you going to be involved? Our parental involvement pledge says each parent who signs it is going to read 15 minutes a night and volunteer 10 hours a year in school and outside of school. That means that we have a database of all the parents who want to volunteer. We can send them messages about what's going on in school. We can get them organized. But if you don't get the schools to follow this federal law, it's in Title I. Every public school that receives federal money, half the schools in the country, most of the schools in the St. Louis region, have to follow these laws. And if they do, academic achievement goes up. You can fix a public school with community and parental involvement. East St. Louis can be fixed. St. Louis public schools can be fixed if they'll let parents in, and not fake parent involvement where they send parents feel-good messages, we love you. No, no, no. We want parents involved in policy. We want parents to be involved as a force for volunteer time. 10 hours of your time in a school year, multiplied across the entire district, makes a huge difference.
One place you can start your own investigation into your districts is through our website, KMOV.com. We've posted everything from salaries to travel to training dollars spent.
Remember, it's up to you to hold your district accountable. We at News 4 will also continue to investigate your public schools.
But there's no transportation.
You're taking it away from the kids.
Is this the signal that you think you should be sending as superintendent to accept a benefit like this?
I think the important thing for the public...
I know there were parents who were concerned about basic services.
Yes.
It was a horrendously wrong choice by this board.